Matt asks, I would be interested in a video about how learning PLO might affect one's no-limit hold'em game.
That's a good question. And, for myself, it's been a long time since I played No Limit seriously. And so my kind of learning PLO as of late has not impacted my No Limit game because I don't have a No Limit game. I'll speak from my own experience. PLO has helped me understand how to play more passively in a lot of spots. I think it feels very comfortable in No Limit to do a lot of protection betting and like thin value betting to then check back river, just to kind of make the hand easier to play. And PLO has taught me not to do that. There's a time and a place, but PLO has taught me, the benefit of strengthening your check back ranges and having board coverage on different turns and rivers, things like that. I think anytime that you study poker seriously, it's going to improve your other poker games, if not like immediately after you've gone back to that game for even a few hours. I think just any kind of study of especially theory and solver work kind of just solidifies concepts that apply across games if you're doing the studying reasonably well. Obviously, if you go from playing and studying No Limit 4 days a week to have 3 weeks of playing and studying PLO, and you go back to No Limit, you're going to be slightly rusty compared to where you were before you started that PLO study. But I think overall, studying any game is going to help your other games.
Steve asks, could you talk about transitioning to deuce to 7 triple draw?
So I went from being a No Limit specialist to being strong at No Limit and PLO, being just good at PLO, to then playing some deuce to 7 triple draw limit for a while, because that's where some of the big games at the time online were headed. And that is actually a much different game than No Limit or PLO. So the transition from No Limit Hold'em to PLO was a little bit easier than transition from PLO to deuce to 7 triple draw. Triple draw is, first of all, any limit game is much more mechanical than a big bet game. And actually, like speaking from personal experience, my natural tendencies and strengths and weaknesses don't lend themselves very well to limit games, because my mind always goes to kind of the value of deception in the game and making your opponent think you have something that you don't have. And, the value of hand reading, putting your opponents in spots where they kind of make their hand more obvious based on everything you know about them. And in limit games, those things kind of don't matter so much, because if I've really tricked you into thinking I have something else, I might make one extra bet. And if I've got you super red and I am almost positive you have a certain kind of hand on the river and you bet, I'm still getting 9-1. So how certain am I? And if I'm 95% certain that you have a value bet, then yeah, I fold and I make a correct fold. But I didn't make that much money. It's not like giving me that much of an advantage. Whereas if we're playing No Limit Hold'em and you pot river and I'm 90% sure that you have value, now I'm making a fold and getting a lot of EV, because that's a call that a call that would have cost me a lot of money with the hands that I'm supposed to call with, etc. But I'm making a very clear fold. So in limit, it's a lot more about knowing the math behind the game. And while I consider myself strong with math, I was never the most studious player. I actually learned a lot by playing, and you can't do that as much in a game like deuce to 7 triple draw. So I actually did do a lot of math, and I think it's funny. I think now they have tools that can teach you, not publicly, or they have a couple of public tools, but I think some of the best players in the world own tools privately that tell you how to play triple draw. I never had one of those. And at the time that I learned it, I don't think people did either. But I was just doing a lot of manual calculations and honestly, spreadsheet work. I'm reasonably good with Excel. And I remember going and plugging in, here's the range of hands that I think my opponent has. I'm deciding if I want to snow with this hand, which means pat a hand that's no good to represent that you made a good hand and bluff. And what's going to be higher EV, drawing to this hand or snowing with this hand? And so I plugged into a spreadsheet. Here's the range of hands that they have with these hands. Here's how often they improve to something, etc. And then how often I customized it so you could put assumptions about how they would play each of those hands, and then say, okay, well, if I think they're going to fold with these hands but call with these hands, it's more profitable to snow. And if not, then whatever. And so I was actually doing a lot of manual math, and it was harder than I'd worked at poker, at least with this type of studying, than I had before. But actually, I find that work in some ways like, yeah, it's tedious, but because it's so exact compared to like when you're playing No Limit or PLO, a couple of assumptions, like a small change in the way that they're playing, completely changes the EV of your play. Whereas in Limit, that's less the case. And so I don't know, I kind of found that work interesting, if time consuming and tedious. I found it pretty interesting and fun. And especially, I mean, personally, I have a lot of fun when I'm learning a game at high stakes and these games are running and the games seem pretty good. And if I can just put in the work and learn faster than my opponents, there's going to be value there for me. And so I found that motivating. And I think I did a pretty good job of, for a period of time being a top player at a triple draw, which I've never accomplished in another limit game. So that for me is quite an accomplishment.
All right, Phil, one final question from me, Thomas. So, when we talked about doing YouTube content, you've always insisted that day in the life stuff would be boring because you're a homebody.
Yeah.
So why don't we put that to the test? Here we are. It's the end of May. Why don't you walk through what you did yesterday?
Yesterday, okay. Good question. So yesterday, so it was kind of unique because I came back. So last week I went on a business trip for 3 days. It was like a conference for Rush Street Interactive, which is a company that acquired Renault Poker. Got to meet a lot of very interesting people that I work with, including some that I'd already talked to a lot. But it was really fun. Anyways, I came back from that, and then my son and my nieces started their spring break, and so we spent 3 days with. I spent 3 days with family. So this was actually yesterday came after 6 days off, essentially from my normal routine and normal work. So I had a lot to catch up on. So I kind of started with. I mean, I woke up at 6:30. No, I woke up at 6:30, and I spent the first 2 hours. Well, I mean, responding to some emails, but also kind of mapping out all of the things that I have to catch up on and what I want to focus on next. And so, okay, so what did I do? I ended up with. So I did that for a while. I did a short workout, and then I did basically just an hour of catching up on responding to messages and kind of boring stuff, really. Then I had a meeting with you. We launched a YouTube video, and then we talked about what we were going to record today. Following that, I had another meeting with a potential partner for Run It Once training that I am not going to share too many more details about. That took an hour and 15 minutes. I stopped and had lunch. Then I updated my Run It Once partners on that meeting, filled them in, and then I had another meeting with our CEO at Run It Once Training for about, I don't know, a little over 90 minutes, and kind of caught up on what I've been missing. We make some decisions. I'm not super involved in the day-to-day of Run It Once Training, so my job is making videos, general company direction, and then vetting pros that we hire. But then everything else from a day-to-day perspective, the team without me, the team runs without me. So then I have meetings with our CEO, James. Well, it varies, but when I have time and he has time, and kind of catch up on everything. And usually those are for making bigger decisions. So he's kind of everything that's gone on in the last week or two. Here are kind of the things that he assumes I would want to have input on. So we did that for a while, and that was actually the end of it. Then that ended at 3:30. And then actually it's still spring break for my son and nieces. So we went out to a park with them, and out to dinner, and then home, watch TV with my wife and my son, went to bed relatively early, and that's the whole boring day.